Noticing the time and the presence of a quorum, I now call the Finance Committee to order. And the first item to be discussed is public comments. If there's anybody that has any public commentary. No? Is this how I had in the order? Yes. All right, so diving right in, the Finance Committee annually does a point of view, which is to provide guidance to the town on the budget and other items. And I wanted to have a discussion with the Finance Committee on their thoughts for the point of view, with the intention of gathering everybody's thoughts, opinions, consolidating them, and then having a working session at our next Finance Committee meeting to try to get to a point of view for this budget 2027. I think that sounds right. So I'd just like to go around the table, and if you don't have a lot of comments, that's fine. If you have lots of comments, that's also fine. Jason was kind enough to send around his deck from the prior year. I'd almost prefer to maybe start without looking at a template, so we just kind of talk openly and freely, and just to kind of get people's thoughts, and then we'll go from there. So we can start right or left. It doesn't really matter to me. Steve, you want to go first, and we'll just go down the line?
Sure, I like last year's.
So just change the date and just resubmit?
Well, we talked about a lot of things like long-term planning and cost reduction and things like that. We somehow started off the year okay and then kind of got lost in a swamp of DPW building. And that really crowded out most of any other discussions that we had. I will say that the mess that we ran into with the ALG plan at the end of the year makes me question who else is going to do a long-term plan other than us. The select board didn't do anything past 27 and then assumed a way too low number for the rest of the year, so it's not really a meaningful number. But had they done it a better job, it would have added about another $800, maybe $1 million a year to the deficit that was there. But since the deficits were getting up into the $10, $12 million range by the end of the forecast, not a significant error. The problem is that what we thought was a terrible looking forecast was understated. And yet I don't see any real, I'll withhold judgment. I don't know what the school, program could run into, but we've got potential deficits out in the FY30 period that are a little under 10% of our revenue. They're way too big to deal with from mere cost cutting, but we know how to do some. So I think, we need to put together a plan that, I'm not saying we need to frighten people, but we need to show that if we don't change what we're doing, the logical consequences of our actions are a deficit that we can't necessarily solve by cost cutting, that tax increases and significant tax increases may be coming down the stream. But it kind of said all that last year.
Well, everything bears repeating, Steve. So sometimes you have to say things 6 times before someone hears them. So I took notes on your comments, and we can go around and back around. People want to chime in on what other people say. Jason, you're up.
So at the risk of getting stuck in the same morass as last year, we do need to have an early conversation about DPW. In years past, it was routine at ALG to have a go, no-go for any kind of override, debt or operating or otherwise, to have a go, no-go by the end of October. I don't expect we're going to be able to do that this year, although that is a traditional way of trying to make sure that everyone's rowing in the same direction before town meeting. I would also like to say that there is definitely some unfinished business with regard to ALG from last year. I did go back and listen to, not listen, it wasn't recorded. I did go back and read the select board meeting where they reacted to our request not to have our name associated with a document that was clearly incomplete. And I roundly, soundly, and completely reject their conclusion that, well, you guys were involved, so therefore your name should be on it. The whole purpose of a consensus-driven entity is you get to consensus or you don't, and if you don't get to consensus, you don't try and get to claim that you had support along the way. We did not support the DPW building, and we absolutely did not support the forecast. And for them to then try and say, well, we're just gonna try and grab some of the rubber stamp expectation and say that the FinCom was involved in it, I thought was dirty pool. Personally, I think that you and I, in particular Scott, but the committee as a whole, because it was a unanimous vote, I believe we're owed an apology. And I'm not even sure we should even consider walking back into ALG without a commitment to play by the rules that everyone agreed to at the beginning of the year. If you don't get to consensus, you don't get to claim you're at consensus. It's just a terrible way of moving about your business. I do think that we need to make a decision on the DPW building very early in the year. I don't think it's feasible to say they have to make up their mind by the end of October, but I, for one, am not prepared to spend every meeting until late April on this topic. If they don't come to us, and if we don't come to an agreement on a reasonable sized DPW building in a reasonable period of time, and again, I'm open to some suggestion here, October is the traditional end date, then maybe we just need to say we're not going to play this game again and cut bait early in the year. How does that impact a point of view document? Maybe we need to say 10 million bucks, 12 million bucks. That's all we're willing to spend, because we can't imagine that it costs more than $12 million to have some small number of people whose job it is to stay in that building all day long have a place that is suitable to work for. Similarly, if we don't get a Collins study, if we don't get a full accounting of equipment, and with reasonable metrics, like how frequently does each piece of equipment get used, how frequently is that building actually emptied. It's great to do the song and dance of, hey, it takes us half an hour or 45 minutes to fill up filled up that space every day. Well, why are you emptying the space every day? Is it real? Do you have to do it? Okay, that's a data point we need to know. If you're not emptying it every day, stop telling us what a chore it is to empty it every day. It's not a viable data point. And by the way, again, to all the things we've discussed in the past, how much of that equipment is year-round equipment? How much of that is seasonal equipment? And why aren't you managing that better so that you don't have to do this all the time? But I'm kind of done litigating this. I feel like we've spent a year on this, and I feel like we haven't been listened to. So I'm prepared to give it a couple more meetings, and then I'm prepared to say what they said to us last year, which is let the voters decide. Well, let's go do it again, because I'm done with it. Nextly, on the point of view document, I think it's great for us every year to say we have to come up with the best cost savings possible. I don't want to give the schools undue praise and say that they've started, because we haven't seen the work yet, but they're going to have something back in December timeframe, and whether it's fantastic or not, the optics of it are that they've done some work and they've got something to show for it, or they don't, or they really are up against a wall, in which case life is going to be that much harder. I think it's incumbent upon us, in our point of view, to pay attention to the wider world around us. In 2009, I believe we said that there is a recession coming, and what's that going to do to our finances? With jobs number revised today down 1.2 million over the previous year, maybe we need to again start saying, hey, there's a real possibility of a recession coming. What of the tariffs? What are some of the other things that it's impossible to actually crystal ball what the impact will be, but to not even bring them up and say that they have a germane impact on our finances is a dangerous thing to do. We've already had people taken off the streets of our town by ICE. What if that hits a critical mass? What's a small, medium, and large impact of an immigrant population that is cowed or rounded up or just not willing to play ball? That's got an impact on our town. Straight up, what is the impact of a recession on our town? We should have some concept of how that's going to hit things. I appreciate that we get quarterly updates on how things are going with our revenue and our spend to date, but are there any canaries in the coal mine that we should pay attention to? Are we seeing a decrease in excise tax in particular? That type of thing that can really let us know if we've got a problem coming down the pipe. Do we have less housing turnover? And again, actually, this is one of those things where it could be good or bad news. If we have less housing turnover, maybe that means that things are stable. If we suddenly have high turnover, does that mean, is that a good sign? Does that mean that housing prices are great and people are getting good money for it? Or does high turnover mean that our history of enrollment in the school district is about to change because a whole bunch of people just bailed on their houses and now we're getting families with kids again? Unfortunately, this is not going to be a year where we can just say, yeah, let's keep it to 3% and we're going to call ourselves good. I don't think we have that privilege this year. I don't think we're anywhere close to that privilege this year. But I'm having a very hard time divorcing the strategy from the tactic. And I tend to be thinking more of the tactic of we've got to solve the DPW building early. We have to get an affirmation that if you're going to have a consensus-driven entity, you actually respect the rules of the entity. And then lastly, so that we don't get into an us versus them, town versus gown problem, then let's start applying pressure now, saying, if you can't come up with 3 or 4 years worth of reasonable estimates, we'll come up with those estimates for you, and we'll consider your input to be unimportant because you don't care enough to give us the information. In which case, we really are setting ourselves up to going back to the way things were, which is we have to be the independent voice of the town, and the ability to have collaboration is out the window. It's not how I want to do it, but Lord knows we gave them chances. Sorry, that was a lot. Thank you.
Well, this is a big topic, Jason, so I really appreciate the download, and I'm sure you still may have some additional comments as we cycle back through. Roland, when you talk, can you make sure you get the microphone close? You tend to be a little quiet when you talk, so.
I've never been told that, so, anyway.
Be loud.
I want to see us do something with addressing police and fire. The citizenry was we had to build this new station in North Acton, and, it's gonna enhance our services because we have a gap in coverage. And then, we're gonna close the center and the West Acton fire stations, which now gives you a big gap in coverage again. Because the best places we know for something to be is central and centrally located, especially if it's a heart attack or a house fire. As we know, a house fire doubles in size every 30 to 60 seconds. And somebody having a heart attack, it could be critical, so, or something even more vital, a car accident or what have you. I think the town should revisit the regional dispatch center, maybe look at other towns that may want to do it, such as Foxborough or Maynard or what have you, other towns that touch us. And I think that'd be something that, you could save some money there. Another one is the transfer station, because that will eventually have to be addressed as well. They bought a new hut and put it where they put it, which I can't figure out why it's there. And I talked to the guy who manages the hut and manages it. I gave a plan to have it in this specific area, and the reason why I did that is I could actually monitor what's going into the recycling and that a lot easier, and whoever's working it can. But that was bought last fall. It's not being used. Which looks at me, I don't know how much it was, but if it's not being used and the other one hasn't been removed, it's just a waste of money. And that could have been used for the budgetary to cut down taxes on the citizens. Revenue drivers for that entity as well has changed because we're getting more for steel. But again, it's probably driven by tariffs. Steel's more valuable. Now, we don't know if you build a new DPW building or another building or something, we have to do a major renovation and we need steel, what the impact of the tariffs are going to be, if they're going to be any at this point, who knows, really. Items like that. I think we still need to do a lot more long-range planning, as Steve pointed out. I don't appreciate the fact that the FinCom had to take down our video, but the town left theirs up, the select board left theirs up. And it was cited as campaign finance law. Well, we don't run, and we didn't use town resources. And obviously, Mr. Charter was running for re-election. So as Jason said, that's dirty pool. So I think we had a lot we got to look at, and we heard it over and over and over again in our listening sessions from the seniors. If houses are turning over, I know one family that moved in Acton, they bought a much bigger house. Same amount of kids, but they just bought a bigger house, which is,
That's good.
But as their house gets sold, there's somebody gonna move in with 2 or 3 kids and, impact the schools that way. If we keep raising taxes up and up and up, and our seniors say, look, I can't afford this anymore, and they move out, and somebody buys a house that may be a 3-bedroom or 4-bedroom house, and all of a sudden you have a family of 5 living there, that's going to impact the schools. So there are a bunch of things we need to consider and look at. And as Jason says, what's the drivers of this? What other things after we figure out the DPW and what's going to happen there? What else do we have to deal with? We know we're going to need the old fire stations that have to be redone, or something's going to have to happen there. What new equipment for the police and fire is going to need to be replaced? And again, we still, and we've asked multiple times for, the use and the number of pieces of equipment at the DPW, and we haven't got any answers. And it's kind of hard to make a recommendation on a building size if we find out that, we can operate with 20 less pieces of equipment that we're storing, or that it's only, as we said before, it's seasonal. It doesn't need to be stored in that building year round, it can be stored in another building. And I'm still not convinced that the admin piece of the DPW has to be in that building and should be somewhere else. And the town has to look at that saying, how can we make this more economical? Design a building where you can add that later on in future years if need be. but you don't, you know, it's needs versus wants, again, and that's, I think, very important to point out. What are the true needs versus, hey, this is a nice to have? So I think we really got to look at that, and, this building's going to need some maintenance, and the heating system's old, and, yeah, I get that, but again, at what cost? Everything doesn't have to be 100% green, because the cost is 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, or 100% more, and we'll never get the payback. Where our task is not bugs and bunnies, it's finances. And what is the best value for the town and for the use of the resources that we have today? Because we can't bet on tomorrow, because tomorrow isn't here. What are the resources that we have today that we can allocate to doing projects and do them wisely?
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Jason.
I just would like to respond to Mr. Borden on 2 points. One, do we know if that new DPW building, that new DPW hut, is that, I mean, it looks modular. Could it be easily moved? Is it a case of just, is that a half-day move if they want to? So it's not like, just
Yeah.
because they bought it, it's stuck in that
Yeah,
spot for
but-
the next
but-
30 years, right?
Correct.
Okay,
It's a
good.
modular like the other one was, but the problem is that they built a ramp going into it.
Okay. So I just,
It's
I allow
bad
for
for
the,
traffic flow, period.
I agree with you that buying it a year before you're planning on putting it into use is less than ideal, but I allow for the possibility that they can replace it the way they want.
Sure.
So, and then the other thing to respond to you with regard to our video, them asking to take our video down, I did write an official letter requesting an opinion from the OCPF. Yes, OCPF, Office of Campaign and Political Finance. Have not heard back from them yet, not surprised, it's only been in their hands for like 2 weeks, maybe a little over 2 weeks. So I do expect to hear back from it, but from my read of the statute, we won't get tripped up by that strong arming again.
Thank you.
I just want to make one correction. The town manager did give me a very high-level listing of the equipment, which met my ask. However, my ask in hindsight was not detailed enough, because the information that I received, while it did fulfill the request that I had, it did not answer my questions. So I have to ask the question in a different manner.
I would like to see, when you do ask that, is age of the equipment, what's the expected life cycle of it? If you have a plow truck that's also a dump truck, it's a dump truck with a plow apparatus and a sander and all that, is there any on the horizon that we need next year, the year after, whatever? What's the replacement cycle typically? Because I know they have that old 1980s something that's only used during the winter, that takes up space inside that garage all year round. Doesn't need to be there. I think it's time to move on from that piece of equipment, because it's not as efficient, it's more polluting than what we have in newer vehicles that use DEF within for the diesel.
Is the equipment used year-round? How frequently is the piece of equipment being used? How many drivers do we have at any given time versus how many pieces of equipment at any given time? I mean, if
Yeah.
we've got 47 pieces of equipment and we've got 12 CDL drivers, it's very hard to say that every piece of equipment is needed year-round.
Correct. It's same with like backhoes and things like that. You have to have people that are
So
licensed to that.
some good metrics on what we're getting, what use we're getting out of this equipment would be greatly appreciated.
Yes, you just brought up another point. So it's life cycle, it's replacement, right? And how old is the equipment, and how often does that have to be replaced, and et cetera, and the condition, and all that adds into it, right? And if we need new equipment coming down the road, I would have hoped that you're going for something that's more efficient to thus reduce the cost of ownership versus that. And the other thing is, think they should also take a look at is good used equipment. It doesn't have to be, you to replace a pickup truck for the town. You don't necessarily need to go new. You can buy a used 250, 350 that maybe has 40,000 miles on it or 50,000 miles on it, and you're going to keep it for another 50 or 100, and it's half the cost used, and that's what we should be doing. You know, it's being good stewards of the resources that is provided by the citizenry to the town in the form of taxes. Oh, the other one is how many vehicles are being taken home at night? And why are they being taken home? Because there's liability there. You know, when the worker takes it home and has an accident on the way home and somebody gets injured, or the truck's totaled, or what have you, and why do they need it at home? I mean, my company doesn't give me a vehicle to go back and forth to work, so, I mean, and I think that's the same type of analysis that needs to be done in the town on the vehicles for town hall. John said that they have a continuum. Why can't the people use their own vehicles and get paid mileage? Corporate America does it all the time. And there is no reason you can get an umbrella policy and you can get all these other insurance policies would be a lot less than owning vehicles that don't get used very often and just sit there, or that somebody needs to run a mile or 2 or 3 or even 4 or 5. I'd rather be seeing you paying mileage, which includes insurance and depreciation and maintenance, et cetera.
Before I go to the side, the only other thing on that list that you two did not mention that I think would be helpful for the equipment detail, there might be other bullet points, but one that I think of is, what is the expected extended life of a garaged vehicle versus one that is left outside? Is it a year? Is it 10 years? And what is that based on? Is there any scientific fact or any experiential fact behind that?
Is that what the Collins Center study gives us?
Collins Center doesn't specifically talk about that. It does show a graph of, I guess, what you would consider the sweet spot between maintaining an old piece of equipment or buying a new one. But no, supposedly Weston and Sampson calculates something like that, Scott, but I've seen the amount expressed in dollars over a period of years. I haven't seen the underlying analysis that goes into it.
All right, thank you. Now to Allison.
So I think we have a robust record of our feelings on the DPW building. And I'm going to say, I don't think we need to spend any time on it. Our feelings about the previous plan have not changed. You know, CEG, our point of view from last year, it is the same. And all of the other statements we've made, all of the record on that. I don't think we should consider any DPW plan that isn't materially different from last year. And maybe we can define what that means. We can talk about if it's $10 million cheaper, if it's, I don't know what the material difference would be. But there's this concept of res judicata. This has already been litigated. There is no relitigation of something that has already been decided, unless we think the voters are going to wake up next May and feel differently. This is a waste of time. And all these other topics we're talking about, the opportunity cost of harping on the DPW building, a plan that we've already talked about for a year and we've already litigated. The opportunity cost is we don't have the time or the resources to deal with more pressing problems that we've just been discussing. I, for one, would like to understand what is the impact of, you know, a decrease in the percentage of tax bill collection. Like, what if our collections decrease by 1% because of some recession, you know, people that aren't able to afford it? What does that do to the town's revenue? I do want to look into, and I was just looking on my phone, whether the state publishes aggregate unemployment claims data. Is that going up? And I doubt they do it by town, but I would like to understand what the trends are there. But there are all these different things that we could look into and see how it might impact town finances. But if we're still relitigating the DPW building, we won't have time to do that. So I would say the point of view really should, if we've already taken a position on something, refer back to that and then focus on what we want to accomplish this year, assuming that the DPW building we've already litigated is not going to be relitigated. So. Also on the, this concern about housing turnover and children per family, I would really like to understand what the actual trends are now, because we're talking in hypotheticals. What if someone with 5 kids moves in? But, you know, the last few houses that have sold in my neighborhood have been childless couples with elderly parents. So they do have dependents that will cost the town in resources, but they're not going to be in the school budget, right, in terms of resources. They'll be on the other end of the spectrum in terms of what their needs are. But, you know, if we don't understand what the actual trends are for the current generation of people moving here and you know, potentially being able to have families, what are the choices they're making? Because fertility is going down, it's not going up. So, but we don't know. We're just talking in hypotheticals. We haven't had time to look into the numbers. We've spent so much time on the DPW building. So there are a lot of really interesting issues that could impact town finances, but I'd like for us to have the time to do that, to look into those issues, so.
Thank you. Corinne?
1,000% what she said. I'm so done with the DPW building. I think the school district probably loves that we spend so much talking about it because we're not talking about them. I would like to see a lot more, at least as much scrutiny given to that budget as we give to the town budget. I think they skate under the radar. They just say, we need a 5 or 6% increase in our assessment, and they just expect to get it. I think there should be a little bit of town versus gown. There needs to be some, they're fighting for the same pool of resources. There needs to be a little bit, enough friction there. If there's no friction, it means taxpayers are paying too much. So the trends, the housing trends you were talking about, we have, again, many years of data now of the town population going up slightly and the school enrollment going down significantly. And so, and the addition of housing units has not brought in more school-aged children. And like Allison's neighborhood, sounds like I have very similar stuff going on in my neighborhood, where I've got several young couples on my street, and, you know, they've got 4 kids between them. Like, you know, there's all these other things happening that, you know, people aren't necessarily moving here for the schools. They're not, for one thing, because they're not having kids. So, like I said, so that being said, again, I just keep going back to the same thing I keep saying, I've been saying for a couple of years, way before I was on this committee, was the schools need to start to figure out a different way to do business. They cannot just keep growing their budget at 3, 4, 5, 6% a year, whatever they say they need, while their enrollment continues to decline. They are projecting, they peaked about 17 years ago. They are now projecting another 10 years of declining enrollment. Not as significant as what it's been up to this point, but there's nothing indicating that it's going to turn around. You know, last I was listening to Board of Selectmen meeting and to the FY27 preview, and town manager said that was one of his concerns, was the assessment from the schools being anticipated at 5 or 6%, and therefore that's going to limit what the schools or what the town can, you know, can spend. And I would say that's where, you know, the town needs to push back. It just can't keep, that other piece of the pie just can't keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger and supporting a smaller and smaller portion of our population. So, and I'm trying to think what else I was thinking. I'll go around again.
Go ahead, Roland, and I have a couple comments.
So,
Don't forget about Greg.
hey, don't forget about Greg.
We'll go to Greg after Roland.
Friend of ours on the next street over. They just put an ADU on their house, and their 3rd child is now in college. They have 4, so they have 1 in high school. So that trend that's also a trend that we need to maybe mention within our point of view, that there are a lot more like ADUs being built on houses to accommodate aging parents and aging loved ones, right? And as Allison, I absolutely agree. I think I don't want to spend any more time on the DPW, that's for sure. That our population is shifting, right? And it's the birth rate, not just here in Acton, but all across the country, is declining. It's because young couples can't afford housing and to move to a community and establish roots because the houses are too expensive. And that's not necessarily an Acton, it's something to be aware of. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a problem, but it's something to be aware of. And it's not just impacting our own town, it's impacting a lot of other towns as well, so. Anyway.
Greg,
Mr.
sorry, let Greg go for, we can come, Greg, I'll make comment, then we can go back around, Steve. Go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, you must have had phenomenal foresight because at the beginning of your chairpersonship, you decided to juggle the portfolio, and I got assigned the schools. But I also kept the DPW building. So listening to tonight's discussion, I agree with everyone. And that's, I think, one of the significant things that we should just reassure ourselves of is we still believe what we believed earlier this year. It's not like we've shifted at all. But one of the interesting things that I'd like to sort of update everybody on is my colleague, Christy, is not here at tonight's meeting because she's at a meeting of the group that the schools have assigned to talk about hard issues like reorganization and all the things that we haven't had the time to pay attention to yet as a full board. At least both Christy and I have seen some significant effort to recognize a couple hard truths. One of the things that the school committee discussed at their most recent meeting was that the population of students is down 10% over the last 10 years, and they project that it will go down another 5% over the next 5 years. So, they know the math and they're wrestling with that. Meanwhile, on the topic that nobody wants to talk about anymore, again, we haven't had much of a chance to talk about the one meeting of the DPW building committee that's been held earlier this summer. There will be another one on September 24th. At least that's the tentative date right now. There's an effort being made to just verify that we can get a quorum of the members. We had a little bit of a challenge getting a quorum at our last meeting. But let me, again, report as your liaison to that group. The new consultant that they brought in, Arrow Street, basically started with a clean slate. They did not try to defend the previous consultant. They did not try to defend the previous proposal. They basically came in and said, we can see 4 different alternative approaches here. And based on both my input at that meeting, but also Scott's input at the select board meeting, they've added a 5th. And one of the things that will be presented on September 24th is not one new proposal that we've got to roll our eyes at and go, oh my God, did they listen or didn't they? They've got 5 different approaches, one of which, just to set the stage here, is there a way to just continue with the building we have, which, by the way, they assume is going to be good for another couple of years? That was a stunning discovery during that meeting. They said maybe we might want to rehab parts of it, But the consultant made the statement when discussing the hole in the wall, well, maybe the driver shouldn't be driving into the wall so much anymore. I mean, it was refreshing.
That's what they said.
It was refreshing. Now, all of that is to say is that, yeah, we have a lot of information that we're going to want to digest. We do need to refocus on the entire set of issues facing the town. I totally agree with Steve, who basically has outlined it's not just about getting through this next year, it's about getting through the next several years. That's going to be an interesting challenge. And I will apologize to everybody in advance, but I'm how do I say this? A former speechwriter for a number of executives at high-tech companies here in Massachusetts. So I think in PowerPoint and I write in Word, and I'm not that good at spreadsheets as many of you are, but I have put together a rough draft of what I think we could put into a point of view document. It's in a PowerPoint, it's in a Word document, it's marked draft because it's a draft. But basically pulling the data that I had from sitting there at the DPW building committee and monitoring the school committee meetings over the last several months, I can't claim to have, a 360-degree view because I think I'm probably missing some data from the town. But I think the one missing piece that I asked for that I got from Jason today was show me last year's plan. And I put together a rough draft of what this year's plan, this year's point of view might be. Now, one of the things that's worth noting is that point of view document from a year ago is still not posted on the website in the section on Finance Committee. The most recent point of view we have is from 2 years ago.
Hey, Greg, that's like our responsibility, so that's our fault.
Are we the ones who?
I'm posting the stuff for FinCom right now, so
Okay, cool. Well,
I will happily I'll back post things, but that's our responsibility.
Okay, well, then then we should get that up because we have both a decision challenge in front of us. How do we get our arms around a big budget challenge from now to the end of the year, but also through the end of the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years? And again, I'll share my rough draft because I find people, at least based on the last 2 go-rounds that I had on these point of view documents, it was easier to amend something that I had in front of me than it was to try to come up with something from scratch. So I put together a document that I don't have any problem whatsoever with people modifying, editing, deleting, adding, whatever. But I wanted to get this process going because, yes, we need to be the third voice at the table. We need to provide guidance as soon as we can. And that then sort of puts the onus on us to get this process wrapped up as rapidly as, well, getting a consensus of us and the other 2 committees and boards in town is a challenge. We need to get our own consensus together first, and then we're going to be in a strong position to participate in those other conversations. So I will upload those tonight after the meeting, but I wanted to give you a sense that, whether it was fate or luck or planning or whatever, I ended up in the 2 places that watched the schools wrestle with the issues that they know they have to deal with. And I watched the new consultant come back with some surprising options for the DPW building. It's not going to be a take it or leave it kind of proposition. I think we will look over the spectrum of options that we have and we may gravitate to the one that is less expensive, and other boards may gravitate to ones that are more expensive, but let's put it this way. We will still be farther along in having a coherent point of view that the town can look at, analyze, and make their decision based on data on more than one option.
Thank you, Greg. Any other thoughts?
Oh, can I add one last thing?
Yeah,
One last thing. I announced at our meeting 7 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago, I forget when, that I had a conflict of interest when it came to dispatchers. It turns out that the relative of my wife is no longer working as a dispatcher, went back to the previous job. So I have no conflicts of interest at this point, and I want to make that official so that it's in the minutes, because I've announced that to the town clerk so that he was aware of that, but I want to announce to all of you the same news.
well, I'm disappointed that they had to resign because of your conflict, Greg. But
No.
thank you for letting everybody know. Thank you.
No, I can now dig into the police as much as I want.
Before I go to Steve, can I just say one thing? Greg, while I do appreciate you having a full document that we could probably just use tomorrow, as you can probably tell, the approach I'm trying to take is I'm trying to get people's thoughts and then try to come back to the Finance Committee with what I think I've heard, and then have a working session on it, as opposed to, it would be very easy for me to take something that Jason's done in the prior year and just change the year on it and just make a quick modification to it. But I've been spending a lot of time trying to have this as representative of what I feel like the town needs. And I think hearing what everybody's thoughts are and then aggregating that and then having a working session to get through it, I feel like to be the best approach. We might end up entirely using exactly what you presented or what you have exactly the way it is, but I'd rather get there through a process than just jump to a conclusion. If it takes us an extra week to do this, it takes us an extra week. I'd rather have it right than fast.
I'm cool with that. So do you want me
Okay.
not to send this in?
No, please send it out. Please send it out. I'm just saying that I'm not racing to a conclusion. I'm trying to get there organically. Steve?
Yeah, so a couple of things. First, I went back and looked at the town spending growth on the ALG basis from FY '21 to FY '26, and then projected out to FY '30. And what I found was that the 3% that happened on average for the base period occurred because debt was declining. Excluded debt declined by 53% over those years, included debt by 43%. Without those declines, then town spending would have increased by about 4.4% a year. Then I decided, okay, I'll make the same assumptions about salaries, about most benefits, not healthcare, and not about debt. Everything else I projected out the same. Healthcare I assumed to be 10%. The average of the prior years was more like 8%. But as we all know, healthcare increased rapidly more recently, plus I understand the Maya numbers are like 12% forecast. I'm only assuming a 10 on my forecast. And instead of trying to project debt off of a declining number, I took the value of what's in the current CIP for the years for general fund debt, which seems to be backed up by the selectmen's goals, and ran that out. So I came out with not the 3.6% escalation they had in their ALG plan, but a 5.4% escalation per year, which is not too different from the schools. And considering the basic cost structure of both entities is about 75, 76% compensation, you'd expect them to have about the same escalation. So that's one thing. Second thing, for those of you who are hoping to find us a leading indicator in our numbers, as the only member of this committee that was there in 2008, I can tell you that we are a lagging indicator. The recession, should it come, will be out in the papers, everybody will feel it, and then about the next 2 years, we'll start to see it. But the first place we'll see it is in state aid, because the state finances are based on income taxes, sales taxes, capital gain taxes, things like that, that are much more sensitive immediately than property taxes. So yeah, it will happen, but it will happen after everybody else sees it coming. Third thing kind of relates back to what I was just talking about, plans. The fact of the matter is, the select board didn't look past 27, and I think in 27 they projected a 4% something increase. I'm not sure the town manager has to worry about the schools eating up the 2.5% increase, because I think their spending is going to be almost as high in terms of rate of increase. But on the one hand, I see schools trying to do something about it. And full disclosure, I was a consultant for Deloitte & Touche for a while, and I don't put a lot of stock in consultants, but it pays well, I can tell you that. The other thing is, like I said, they have the same basic cost structure, and hanging 3.5% on the FY 28 through 30 without a basis of having looked at the numbers tells me that they don't want to know, or, well, let me just put it bluntly. In my experience, 50 years of different kinds of finance, you solve 0% of the problems that you don't see coming. And it doesn't look like they want to see it coming. So as far as the ALG goes, I agree with Jason. I've read the minutes of their discussion about how to label the so-called multi-year plan, and it violates all of the ground rules of the ALG. So before Scott and Roland, you attend one of those meetings, I would like some sort of an agreement on what the hell they were thinking of when they had that discussion.
Can I just add one thing to your list of things to throw into the hopper if we're doing new requests? And I would love to say I had a data point factual basis behind this. I just don't. This is strictly emotional. Could we please, for the love of God, just stop taking on new projects in this town? I feel like we went from a twin school and a fire station to the Gardner Playground to the housing plan at the Kennedy property to Kelly's Corner to, back to the Kennedy, and now we're redoing the section by the railway station. Could we please just let the people live for a couple of years without constantly, I forgot the damn 17 Woodlawn, which I can't believe I forgot about that. Can we please just stop for a couple of years? Just stop digging up this town for a little while, please and thank you. That's the 17 Woodlawn.
All right. Oh, go ahead, Allison.
I mentioned this last year, and I got some smirks because, I don't know a whole lot about town government, but I would really like to understand what other sources of revenue might be out there. How can towns make money, right? And I know it might depend on, state law and the Constitution, we can't just put red light cameras everywhere and write people tickets. I would love to do that if it would help us, balance our budget. But Are there additional sources of revenue? I would just really like to understand that, because we're talking about costs, and in any business, if you see your costs going up, you're going to look for more revenue. Where's the cash? Whether it's short-term or long-term, like new business, organic growth, I don't know if anyone's thinking about that.
Norwood runs its own cable access, became their own cable provider. Concord has its own municipal power and light, so they charge for electricity.
And their internet is fast.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so there you go.
All right, I have a bunch of commentary and then my own thoughts. Just to go back, two things, Allison, just to see, actually, no. So first thing is the town demographics. I'm not a believer that the census data that we're using is correct. Everything I've seen is based on 2020. And when I pulled the actual real census data, it was completely different than the census data. And the fact that the state is using census data pre-COVID seems rather skewing of numbers. I would imagine that there wouldn't be a more dramatic difference in census data between pre-COVID to today than any time in recent memory. So whatever the next census, the real census is done, and not referencing 2020, I feel like we're going to have probably a very dramatic difference in how we view the demographics of all these areas. Let's see. All right, so I've spent a lot of time thinking about this. I actually spent a whole day digging through the FinCom site and going through all the documents. And there's a couple things that I think that the point of view is our opportunity to try to give guidance to the town. There's a lot of things that there's a lot of things that I think could be agenda items for us, but not necessarily things that we would be putting the point of view. Like Allison, for like the revenue drivers, the best revenue driver for the town would be another over 55 community somewhere. That is the best driver, and they can go behind shopping plazas, they can be tucked in different areas. That's the best. Eben did a presentation on it. He was right. That would be the best thing for us to do. Be better than, because we'd have to get a very large business in here to build a building to generate more revenue. Having like a 30-unit over 55 community would add a bunch of tax dollars and would develop property in town that probably would not be good for retail. But outside of that, the items that I think that I'd like to somehow squeeze into the point of view, and I'm not giving opinions on them right now, I'm just saying these are things that looking at this, I'm thinking of. First is capital planning. Now, one thing which is not a part of the point of view, it'd be great to have all the data on all the capital items in the town so that we had an exhaustive listing of everything so that we could look at it and say, we know that, 10 years from now, these items aren't going to be obsolete. And so we could factually go through and do a projection on what would have to be replaced. So I think that would be helpful. One thing that I've never seen really zeroed in on, but listening to the select board meeting last night, what the town does for donations, for subsidies. The presentation last night, Acton was the third highest, which is something to be proud of. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but we were the third highest in the surrounding area. I think Newton and Lexington were the only other two towns higher than us. Yeah. But how much is the town in total spending on subsidies? What's the aggregated total? And is there a goal for the town? as a percent of total revenue. Because I think there's always a case to spend more, but it should just be a summation line item that we are targeting spending X percent of revenue towards subsidies so that we can afford it. Because everything else is, everything else in the budget is tied to expense growth and how much are we growing? Like if you, let's say are you just doing a straight subsidy, so you're not getting any state reimbursement for it, it's just coming straight out of tax dollars. And there's a genuine reason to do it. So we do that, and let's say it's $1 million or million. That would be, if it was on the municipal budget only, that's entirely their entire growth of their budget year over year. That's like 3%. So how much, like, should we have a point of view? That's a question. So Finance Committee, should we have a point of view on the summation of all subsidies? And what should our target be? Should we have a target zone for capital maintenance? Should we be targeting, what percent of the budget should we say? Because realistically, there's something going to break every year. We saw with the water, the stormwater, that's, my brother-in-law is an engineer. I asked him, and it's like, he's on a board in another town. I'm like, how do you manage this? He's like, it's just, you just stick your finger in the dam. You just got to just fix it as it breaks. You don't have enough money to fix all of it, and you just have to fix it as it goes, and you just got to kind of just work your way through it. So, like, there's a lot of things from a capital expenditure standpoint, like what is a reasonable amount of the budget to have for that? So if we had zones of, and like, what are we spending on consultants? Like, is there a consulting band that we should be saying that we should, and I know a lot of them we get reimbursed for, but like, and how much money are we spending on acquisitions of land? I know we get reimbursed for those too, but just general thinking, like, outside of the topics that were in the prior year's point of view, I'm just asking openly, like, are these things that we should be, having a point of view on?
I think that's a good idea. I mean, what's CapEx, what are we spending the money on, right? I mean, we always, the culvert has to be taken care of, or it could be catastrophic, and do it now and hopefully save. The other thing I just thought of was that big development going in on Powder Mill. And what's the projected revenue to the town from taxes on that property? And on the flip side is, what are the potential impacts to the town? Police, fire, EMS, transportation, what have you. Because Powder Mill is it's worse than Kelly's Corner right now. I mean, we were told that in front of the schools, all the paving's gonna be done by school opening. Because I remember Jason asking that question. It'll be all done. Well, it's not. There's one of it where you have to make sure you go slow, because it's like a 1-inch bump, and if you hit that hard enough, you'll break a tire. Maybe it's bigger than that, and that wasn't done properly. So I think we need to get a little bit more clarity on that project over there and how that's impacting town services and revenue drivers, right? If we're going to bring in another $1.5 million a year and it's only impacting $500,000 a year, well, great. I don't think that's the reality, and I just wonder how it's going to impact the quality in the town and the stress they can put on fire, police, EMS, et cetera.
And just one more comment about the acquisition. So, like, for example, this property behind Town Hall here. So regardless of how we got there, regardless, it's going to have an annual cost going forward. Even if it's $1, there's going to be a cost for maintaining, paying attention to it moving forward. Every time the town engages in something, picks up a piece of land and does something, it creates an ongoing cost. And so just, my concept is that the point of view definitely has to cover things that Steve, mentioned. But I feel like we also have an opportunity to provide guidance on what we think is appropriate, from a percentage basis on what's being spent in all these buckets of spending. There's so many buckets of spending. It's like, our compensation's, 80, 75%, but outside of compensation, I just feel like we have an opportunity to talk about it. And I do have one question. This is an open meeting law question. My objective tonight was to get people's feedback. And clearly, we're missing Christie because she's on a champion assignment right now. But we're missing a couple other members. Am I allowed to ask for their thoughts by email, or do I have to wait for another meeting? If I get it by email and no one responds to it, and we just take it as a factual opinion, can we take it or we can't take that?
They should respond directly to you. You can ask for their opinion, so you can have it all aggregated in a final document, but they should reply directly to you and not to the entire committee.
And then, because that's what I'm doing here, but I'm just doing an open forum. And my objective is then to aggregate all of these thoughts into a document for the next meeting, for it to be a working session. And I'm going to do some spreadsheet work, and I'll take stuff that people send me and I'll incorporate it. And the whole meeting will just be to kind of go through it and see what makes sense. And one other thought for Allison. DPW, I entirely agree with you on, we have vetted this and we need to be done talking about it. When I talked to the select board and I talked to people when I took over, I basically said to everybody, I want to be done with the DPW building by the time we get to ALG. I just want to be done. And this is why I was asking for this scenario analysis, which they've agreed to, and I'm waiting for this consultant to come because those are not the only scenarios. I feel like we have additional scenarios, but they don't require a consultant to touch them. I feel like the town would benefit from a conversation about the scenarios, pros and cons, not arguing, just saying, we think this is good because X, Y, and Z, and this is the downside. Because at the end of the day, it's going to be what the town can pay for, and if the town can't afford anything, we can't do anything. But if it can afford $1 and there's a solution that's $1, then that's probably the solution that we should recommend. That's where I'm thinking.
Except that this concept of affordability, it comes directly from taxpayers, right? It's not that they find it in the budget. It's the amount they're
saying,
going to
like,
go back to taxpayers and ask for.
I guess, yeah, I guess.
Sorry, I
that's
don't mean to be pedantic.
No, but in my mind, there's ways of doing it without going back to the taxpayers. And I just think we need to lay them all out.
For example,
Yeah.
during that last DPW building committee meeting, Arrow Street said, and I'm just about quoting, I'm coming very close, paraphrasing this, don't hold me to this, but you've got about 10 years left on that building. And then she adjusted that not even 3 minutes later, saying, with 10 to 15 years left of usable life on the building. And I'm sitting here going, if we've got 15 years usable life on this building, come talk to me in 9 years. In the meantime, we don't need to do a thing on this. Other than their other recommendations were fix some of the grout points, put the gutters back on the ceiling, and please stop backing your vehicles into the garage. Yes, that is almost a direct quote.
Yeah, that's kind of where I am.
I want to second that, because Jason, you're absolutely correct. And that's one of the things that was surprising, is that this new consultant was saying that at a public meeting. So again, I'm assigned to go attend the meeting on the 24th of September. But this is one where if you've got the time, yeah, we've all had enough of the DPW building, but knowing what 5 options they're outlining will probably be really, really helpful. Now, the second thing I'd like to point out, though, is one of the other challenges that we have, and I don't know that we want to discuss that with point of view or somewhere else, but the select board has a full-time reporter who covers it. The school committee has a full-time reporter who covers it. We don't. Part of the reason why, quote, that people don't hear our point of view until the last minute is because nobody covers us from meeting to meeting. So one of the challenges that we have is our point of view is our point of view, and we know it, and it's not clear how many other people know it as well. So we may want to borrow Christie's concept of the listening sessions, but reverse them, and once we have a point of view, take it on the road, take it to the senior center, take it to the library, take it to the League of Women Voters, take it to the Rotary Club and the Lions Club, wherever. One of the things that I think I've learned from the last year is that we were the silent member of the trio. Everyone else got news coverage but us.
Thank you, Greg. Roland?
So we used to do that. Steve can attest, Steve did it, the senior center. I did it at McCarthy Town with Christine Russell, or both of them, I can't recall at this point. We used to go to the senior center, that League of Women Voters, Lions Club, anybody who would listen to us. And I think that's something that we may want, I think we should revise and get on these people's agenda at their meetings and go in and present it.
Corinne, then Steve. Sorry, Steve.
I wanted to ask Jason about a comment he made earlier. He said, oh, we don't think we can just say 3% this year. And so are you saying, what could we do without doing an override? Like use the the levy capacity? Like, is that what you're thinking?
No, my comment earlier was, in years past, we were able to say, plug in 3% because we didn't have 15% increases in health insurance costs, and we still had a couple of $1 million in free cash. I'm not advocating at this time saying let's not have an override and let's just use all of unused tax levy capacity. The whole purpose of having that extra 1.2 in unused tax levy capacity is to have a cushion in case something disastrous happens, like another health insurance increase of 15%. So I apologize if my previous comment made it sound like I thought we could avoid an override just by pulling out the stops. I was saying we just can't do the more simple calculations that we used in the past, which were just do 3% and we'll figure it out.
Okay.
You can't just do 3% when you've got a $10 or $12 million deficit.
Okay, so another thing, I heard at the meeting last night, or the one before, whichever, was that the town is going to be turning back like $937,000 from FY25?
Yeah, it's like $1.1 million, but it's primarily due to vacancy.
Right.
And so that's not a number that you could assume would repeat.
Right, I understand this because the previous year was 70,000. My concern is that, like, now that's baked into the base. And I hope we can fill the vacancies for the needed positions, but like the longer they go unfilled, like I said, that it just keeps going up. We're taxing too much if we are building up if we're turning back, $1 million a year. So that's one thing. The other thing is, all of these other things, like the stormwater presentation, that was the most frightening presentation that I've seen here since I've been on the committee. That one scared me the most. And between that and the DPW building, it's like a 4-letter word. But all of these things, like we can't have all these things until if we still have fat in the operating budgets. And I believe we do have fat in the operating budgets. And I'd say for the schools, Greg, something that you want to listen for is what they're doing with the kindergarten classes. Because again, I guess, as Steve has said over and over, it's, it's people. People are our primary cost drivers. And at the school district, that means teachers. They've made a conscious decision as enrollment has declined to have smaller class sizes. And so where kindergarten sizes used to be about 22 kids, now they're like 17. So they've got to start going back to those, dropping some kindergarten sections. Because if you start out with 3 sections at every school, you're never going to drop them as they go up in grades. You need to start with kindergarten. So, I mean, that's something that I hope we're listening for in their plans. And the other thing is, you know this, I'm sure, Greg, we're in a contract year. So, and they're going to negotiate, that's, right now, that's like four and a quarter is the number I say. They always say 2.75, but that doesn't include the steps and lanes, so it ends up being over 4%. Raises, I haven't had an actual raise in over 2 years. So, they said they can't just keep giving 4+% raises to teachers and keeping as many teachers as we have. So those are the things I would be listening for on the school district side. And they're 2/3 of our budget goes to them. And then the other thing I say, when you do post the FY '26 and the '27 points of view, I love hyperlinking. So on things where you want to say, like, we don't want to talk about the DPW, see last year's, just hyperlink back to that document. And and then it's like, I think it shows either our obstinacy or our consistency, whichever you want to refer to it. But you can see that where our thoughts have been in prior years.
Steve?
So this time of year, I like to give one little piece of philosophical stuff about town budgets. So if you're in private industry and somebody tells you you can predict your revenue every year to like a 98 or 99% accuracy, you think you just died and gone to heaven. And we can do that. The problem comes on the cost side because we have way too many things, most of them good things, to spend money on. So this becomes a question of allocation of scarce resources, a basic definition of economics. We have a scarce resource called revenue, and we have a lot of things to spend money on. In the end, what we're looking for is the bundle of capital projects, services that the taxpayers are willing to support. Because that's the sweet spot. Now, over the years, if we only go up 2.5% every year, they'll support anything we put in there. Because they take the 2.5% as a given. Years ago, FinCom tried to shave a 0.5% or 0.25% off it, didn't really make that much difference. The issue we face is we only get very infrequent data points on what that bundle of capital and services that they'll support happens to be. We've gotten 2 in the last 2 years, and what the taxpayers have told us is we're pretty much at the limit. Which is why if we're going to need a whole lot more than 2.5%, we have to have a good long-range plan because we have to be able to quantify it. Because if we keep going, an operating override here, a debt exclusion there, an operating override, none of them are going to pass.
Well, Steve, that's why I was thinking about bands of spending.
Yeah.
And on a percent of total for guidance. Not saying that's what we end up doing, but that's the genesis of where I was thinking of that as a potential approach. Because then the bands become the topic point and not the overall growth. Mm-hmm. So if we were to recommend, I don't know, say that we can't spend more than 1% of the budget on notebooks And that becomes a point of contention with everybody because everybody thinks we should have more notebooks in town. And so then we say, all right, well, you can increase that by a percent, but you have to decrease something by a percent. Where's your offset? So that you're balancing to, 100% of basically of your spend. And so just because it's a point of view, it's like a suggestion. And, we don't manage all the numbers, but we could provide guidance and then maybe speak to it that way. Have we exhausted this? Can I go on to some other quick things here?
Please.
Because I would like to be done in 10 minutes, but, I can dream. All right, approval of minutes. I have the dates, and I printed out the minutes.
I have a couple of adjustments.
Oh, I forgot to do something. Ellie's gonna be mad. I'm supposed to pass out Restaurant Week and Senior Night, the promotions by the town. Please take one and circulate it as we go around, as Jason talks about his edits.
Okay. Edits are for 5-5. Don't worry, I only did 3 out of the 5 meeting minutes because I ran out of time. Meeting 5-5, page 4, third to last line. 5-5, third page, third to last line. That can't be right. 4th page, third to last line. Please take out the word "is" in the third to last line. Mr. Cole, what is the deliverable? This amendment sounds vague, not this is amendments, this is amendment sounds vague. Page 5, need a period at the end of the first paragraph. Page 5 on the 5-5.
Ellie, I have it in case you can't find it.
I've got it.
All right, so what's your next one, Jason?
For the 7-8 minutes, page 2, Ms. Hogseth, today, it should be one word, not 2 days. And it should be, the first word should be build, not building.
Sorry, are you on July 8th?
July 8th, page 2.
Thank you.
Ms. Hogseth, today, not today. And
Pass that to Ellen.
build, not building.
All right, sorry, Jason. On page 2, Ms. Hogseth.
Today, not today.
Oh, yeah. Burden, Anderson. Oh, got it.
And then, just a couple words later, build, not building, because you've got building and building,
There you
building to building. Page 3, Mr. Cole, build, not building. And page 3, Mr. Noon, what would it cost? Did you get all those?
I'm just trying to find the last one.
Let me call that one up.
What would it cost?
What would it cost?
Pass that down there. Thank you.
That one's good? You good with that one?
I'm good, yep.
Okay, 722, page 2.
720, oh, I'm sorry, I had the wrong date. Yeah, 722, sorry.
Page 2, second to last paragraph, it should be no level of trust, not level of trust. And then, I'm sorry, this one's nitpicky, and I really apologize. First line of page 3, it should be THEY apostrophe RE, not THEIR. Because which is which matters.
Debt exclusion because they don't typically have a 30, is that the sentence?
Page 3,
On 27?
line 1, debt exclusions because they don't typically have a 30-year horizon in a practical sense for taxpayers. They are, THEY apostrophe RE, they are the same.
Okay.
That's all I've got.
Anybody
And-
have anything on the 12th or the 26th?
There's one I saw. Let me see which one. I wonder if they'll-
Trying to help you, Ellie. That's easier than finding it in a Word document. Also makes this go faster.
Unless you have to get them back from her if
Nope.
somebody else
Oh, no,
has
no.
comments.
Don't worry.
No.
We got to fix for that.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, move to recommend the meeting minutes of May 5th, July 8th, and July 24th as amended, and the meeting minutes of August 12th and August 26th as presented.
Well, second, is
July
July 24th or 22nd? Yeah.
Yeah, July 22nd. I have a typo on the slide.
Very good.
All right, so I'll put this to
Unfortunately, a roll call
a
vote.
roll call vote. All right, we'll start with Greg.
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Roland?
Aye.
Allison?
Aye.
Corinne?
Aye.
Aye for me as well, so it's unanimous. The minutes have been approved. Thank you, Ellie, and thank you, Mary Ann, wherever you are, for helping with those minutes. All right. Liaison reports. I'm sorry, just jumping right in. I took, CJ Carroll, the principal assessor, was presenting this suggestion to last night, and I pulled this off of Google AI. I took notes from him, but then I Google searched it, and I thought this was a good summary. So, this is exactly what Google would tell you on it. I'm not going to read the slide, but Corinne, do you have a 2-second on this one? The chapter 59, section 50.
They're trying to come up with an incentive for landlords. Sorry. This would provide an incentive, as I understood it, for landlords to rent to low-income tenants, at affordable rates. So that's basically it.
Yeah. So that's just informing. The second thing, item number 6 on the select board agenda, they were discussing a letter of support of a local option of real estate transfer fee legislation. This is an extra tax, and the money is going to be used to fund affordable housing, but there's going to be less restrictions on it. But this will be a tax for anybody that has a property above the mean. There's going to be a lot of towns are opting into this, and there's a lot of discretion for the town. So right now, the select board is just, I think, agreeing to say that they would be interested in this, but if this were to become something that the town has to do, it would have to go to town meeting and get approved. But the summary of it is, it would be an extra, I look at it, it's just an extra tax on people selling their house.
Yep. I think the legislation hasn't passed yet, though, right? They're
Right,
trying to get a letter of support for
Yeah,
the legislation on Beacon
yeah.
Hill, which would allow towns to adopt yet another tax. And one of the things, I called into the meeting last night and spoke up on this, that, supposedly it came from, I don't know, the concern that high net worth people were coming in from out of state and buying up expensive homes and taking homes second homes rather, taking homes out of the inventory, and supposedly taxing everybody over the mean is somehow would address that, which makes no sense at all. And it is, in my mind, just another tax. They said whatever. Some people think it's local control, but I think that's just a euphemism for raise taxes so towns can spend more money on things that they want to spend. What was I going to say? Again, this is me personally. The obsession I think people in this town have with creating yet more affordable housing like, I'm looking at some of the towns around us, and they're building really nice retail spaces And we just keep trying to find ways to squeeze in more and more and more dense housing. And I think people have to start thinking about what they want our house, what we want our town to look like. We have plenty of diversity of housing units in this town. Not all of them are deed restricted, so they don't count. But, so that's me going down a rabbit hole, sorry.
Well, I think that there's not a lot of the ideal commercial property to be developed, and if that commercial property, what little that the town has is used for affordable housing, it, restricts maybe a company from coming in. I think there's a lot of value for the affordable housing. I think that this is another way for funding it. But I always, myself personally, just my own personal opinion, I think taxes that are approved that end up having complete discretion on how they're being applied and everything, it's just like a very fuzzy, like squishy, like, okay, we're gonna, okay that, we're gonna tax this, but then we're gonna figure out how we're gonna do it later. Like, so Fran, who's in real estate, said that the most likely person to be paying this would be the seller. So, so.
Who already pays a significant transfer tax to the
so-
state.
I mean, but then the buyer's still paying it, I guess, part of the purchase price, I don't know. But it's just, and the range was, the percentage that's on the slide is the suggested minimum. There was no mention, to my recollection last night, of what the maximum was. So, and again, it's all up to discretion, but, all right, I'm moving on. And then, just a couple of things. So DPW, the consultants they will have their scenarios by October 6th. There's a tri-board meeting between the two schools committees, select boards, and finance committees scheduled for Wednesday, October 22nd, 7 p.m. at the administration building. Meeting expected to conclude at 8:30 p.m. Thank you, Dean Charter, for that statement. I just copied what he said last night. The first ALG meeting expected to be the last week of September. Town manager is still working with details on that. And then the town manager said he had a joint meeting that is going to be with the select board. I think the select board and the town manager in Maynard scheduled a meeting to be determined, but it should be sometime in September. I think the goal, I might be, Kern might help me with this one, but I think the idea is idea sharing, common problem, solution discussion, something like that. I don't know if it's something that is like an open meeting where other people can attend and listen in, or if it's just a closed meeting, but I'm sure it'll be posted on the town site. I didn't have anything else from last night. Is there any other liaison reports?
Minuteman School Committee met this evening, so I didn't attend because I came here. So I will try to see if they have it posted to YouTube in the near future and give a rundown of what's going on.
EDC met on Friday morning. You got two of the things mentioned from EDC right here in front of you. The seniors' night out at the Velvet Vine, and then the Acton Restaurant Week. There was I think there's either 6 or 8 restaurants that were all signed up for Restaurant Week already. That number seems low to me. There was some conversation about how to go next time you're in to your favorite restaurant, just sort of try and drop a line to the manager saying, hey, don't you want to be part of this Restaurant Week, to try and drum up some more support for all this. There was also a citizen request through the EDC about changing one of the bylaws so that you can have an employee in your house by right, rather than having to go through a zoning board of appeals change. There is definitely more to come on that. That's not a done deal by any stretch of the imagination. And the other thing that I found interesting from the EDC meeting, and it was posted later that day by Senator Eldridge, but Aldi is moving into the Stop and Shop down at Powder Mill Road. So that's an interesting economic development change in town.
Thank you, Jason. Anybody else? All right, moving on.
I have one.
Oh, sorry,
small
Greg.
item.
Sorry, Greg. I always forget that you're here. I should put my glasses back on.
No, that's all right. With respect to Restaurant Week, I sent a letter to all of you after 2 meetings ago. One of the things that we've been asked to do to promote Restaurant Week is a letter to the editor where I am challenging Dean Charter to find more affordable food, and he's going to find better food or whatever. Let's put it this way: the draft of the letter is I sent to you. I will re-forward it again. If anyone has an objection or an edit or whatever, please let me know, because that letter is likely to get sent to the Acton Exchange in the next week or so.
All right, thank you, Greg.
And as for the date on the DPW meeting, I know it was said last night that it was October. I got an email today from Dean Charter, since I'm on the meeting, asking if I was available September 24th. So I will forward that email as well. So that meeting may be sooner than they discussed last night.
Thank you, Greg. I think I want to push this last comment on the intern corrections to the next meeting, just because of the time, and I want to give that, I want to make sure that we're thorough and that we cover everything. And I have open items haven't changed. I have a listing of our next meetings. I feel like unless there's objections, I don't have any other items that I want to cover tonight. I'm just going to push one item to next week, the next meeting. We can start with it and then dive into a roundtable point of view conversation.
We may want to consider moving the December 23 because, or double check that you'll have quorum because people may be out of town.
I was going to put it on Christmas Day. Is that yeah, that's why I listed them. This is when these are the meetings that the room is scheduled. So
October 15th is a Wednesday. Is that,
so it's probably a typo.
okay,
Yeah, you know, that's probably what happened.
November 11th is Veterans Day, isn't it?
it is.
It sounds like it, yeah.
Okay, so we
Hey,
can't. Okay,
I could have wrote all these dates down wrong. So I will check the dates. So the next meeting is definitely September 23rd, right? That's a Tuesday. Somebody double check me on that. That says all the other dates are wrong. Every other date is wrong.
23rd, yes.
All right, so I will correct this.
So if anybody needs to know that.
All right, so it's a religious holiday as well. So I will double check the rest of these dates. I think for the next meeting, we should probably look at our calendars and look at when we're not around and see if we can push meetings around availability. And,
15th is a Wednesday.
yeah, it's probably a typo. It's all good. I didn't check the days and the weeks. I think I just took the document and typed them in, but there were 2 columns, and I probably took it off the wrong column, so.
did you ask AI to write a meeting schedule for you?
No, I took the document. I took the document that Jason gave me, the Word document for you scheduling. And I'm like, I'll just put the rest of the meetings out there and for the year. And clearly, there's some errors, so.
15th is the only one.
All right, so I only made one mistake. So it should be the 14th, not the 15th for October. But I'll fix it. I have nothing else.
Which of you?
I move to adjourn.
Second.
I had to do a roll call. Greg?
All right.
Steve? Aye. Jason?
Aye.
Roland?
Aye.
Allison?
Aye.
Corinne?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you. 10 minutes late.
You're going to get,